So the other day, the character designer and animation director for Dragon Ball Super, Super Hero, also had worked on the Gogeta vs Broly fight in Dragon Ball Super Broly, dropped a lot of interesting info at a convention in France, which not too many people attended. Apparently the place was like packed out minutes before for like K-pop, but of course to the main staff. So Chikashi Kubota mentions that he was not too on board with the 3D move for superheroes and felt it was a shame when he first heard of it. And it seems he was so against it to the point he made it a condition of his involvement for the film to have a 2D part within it, which is what led of course to the switch in medium for the intro of the film. And on the hand-drawn note, Kubota also mentions later that you can just bring out more expression with a pencil. But the fact that he hinged his involvement to work on a series he very much loves, and for such a prestigious position as character designer, one, I'll also add that his inspiration and friend Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru also held, and a position he requested of the producer, really just shows how dedicated he is to hand-drawn animation, but also completely debunks the notion that Dragon Ball's newer staff lack passion, talent, or love for the series. But it also shows the sway he has at Toei, which is even more interesting when you take into account Kubota isn't a Toei employee at all, having been a freelancer for some time now. Now to the second main point of interest that a lot of people are talking about. Near the end, Kubota talks about that he mentioned to the producer, Norihiro Hayashida, who was the producer of the last 3 movies, Super Hero, DBS Broly, Resurrection F, and also on Dragon Ball Z Kai, that if there ever is a Dragon Ball remake, Hayashida should contact him. Yeah, pretty bold. And the 2D intro had a dual purpose as it somewhat served as a portfolio to greenlight such a project, which is ironic because it also got many fans talking about a remake and many used it as a reference of how it should look if such a thing was to be made. So yeah, Kubota seems to really want a Dragon Ball remake and play a big part in it. And no, he isn't a producer, but he is still someone pretty high up that's floating this idea around. And although I personally don't think Toei would go ahead with the project anytime soon, although if I'm honest, I'm sure they'll get to it one day in the future. Maybe after One Piece finishes, I could see them considering it. But there has been an industry trend for remakes and reboots such as Dragon Quest Dai, the Slam Dunk movie, Spriggan, Rurouni Kenshin, Trigun. I mean, Toei's done it for Dragon Ball as far back as the 90s with Path to Power, which saw a reanimated take on Dragon Ball up to the Red Ribbon arc. Dragon Ball Kai also somewhat represented a remake of sorts, cutting Z down all the way to 98 episodes in an effort to make the adaptation closer to the manga, as well as sporting a new soundtrack, reanimated intros, outros, and eye catchers. So yeah, it's definitely not out there. At the same time though, and I'm probably in the minority here, who feels it's just unnecessary, and it won't be anywhere close to being the same Dragon Ball. I mean, for one, do fans really think Toriyama or Toei wouldn't alter or add anything to the story? Like, Toriyama already changed the manga ending himself back in 2004. Then there's Dragon Ball Minus, where out of nowhere he gives his take on Bardock's backstory and adds some to Goku's. There's also stuff he's mentioned in interviews like S-Cells. He's also expressed in the past how he was dissatisfied with the anime's righteous hero portrayal of Goku, with the description he gives also being very similar to the way Goku's written in Super. I mean, and you would probably have some of Super's writers on a reboot as well, so yeah, you might see a slightly different Goku. Then in Path to Power, he completely redesigned many of the villains. He's also picked or used different colors over time. Blue hair Trunks, for example, which had a pretty negative response. I mean, would Z Trunks now have blue hair? Who knows, you might get a pink Supreme Kai or Frieza. I mean, funny enough, the latter almost did make it within Broly. And for the recent film, we also had some manga colors like white-eyed Krillin and Piccolo's Gi. Maybe we might get a green Pilaf. Who knows what Toriyama would do. And then on the acting side, the voices behind both Kid Goku and Bulma and Kid Gohan were recast years ago for the English version. On the Japanese side, Masako Nozawa, the voice of Goku and just about anyone with that dude's haircut, an actor Toriyama handpicked all them years ago, while active, is currently 86 years old, and while I hope she'll be able to play the character for many years to come, that's not realistic. The voice actor for Bulma, Hiromi Suru, passed away in 2017, and there's been many more that have sadly passed on or been recast both in the English and Japanese versions. It just wouldn't be the same cast millions of English and Japanese fans have become familiar with. And then on the soundtrack side, you had the passing of Kikuchi, who, of course, the series just wouldn't be the same without either. The bouncy energy and atmosphere his work gave to Dragon Ball is inseparable. And then again, on the American side, which also has many memorable tracks, well, replacement scores are a thing of the past, so don't be expecting a Bruce Faulconer return. Simply put, a lot of the core figures who have played a big part in shaping this franchise in the past have either retired, passed on, or simply play a much lesser role than they once did. Does that mean a show without them equals bad? No, but it definitely would be a very different Dragon Ball than what many fans I think expect. But yeah, for me personally, I think just leave it as is. Z and the original series, I think already has a lot of charm to it. Adapt Jacko or something, and while a more animated take on the series would be something I'd be really interested in. I mean, it's no secret Dragon Ball was never the most animated show out there, and there are so many amazing talents inside and outside Toei currently I would love to see work on the franchise. It would still be a long-running TV anime, you'll still have filler, you'll still have quality drops in the visuals. I'm unsure as to why fans talk as if being in 2023, the issues with long-running TV anime are somehow bypassed, and especially when the industry is in more of a mess than ever behind the scenes. I mean, just expecting the quality of animation you saw in a movie to not only be there in a TV series, but be there on a regular episode-to-episode basis is just simply not realistic. If you do want movie quality though, maybe hope for a movie retelling instead. But anyways, that's all I had to say. Those were the two main points of interest, or well, that I included in the title. So thank you for watching. Probably will be a Dragon Ball centered video again next week, although I am working on something actually in depth around a specific Dragon Ball animator. Still a ways off, which is why the last video was filler and this one sort of was. But yeah, with that, thank you to my patrons. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you later.